Oh, hello. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Pedro. I've also been working in the EasyBuild project. I work at the University of Groningen in the same team as Bob. And so I want to yeah expand a little bit on some of the things that we talked about that we've heard from today regarding Easy. Yeah, basically show a little bit how this works and how we're making this, what the steps are for the researchers who are developing code within the context of multi-X scale. So the way I'm just kind of structure this is I'm going to give you, I will show you the same slide of the easy workflow, and then I will show you an example of what we're doing with the developers who are using lamps and in their project. And then I will also open a PR live. If all goes well, we'll see it work, where I just install a basic GitHub command line tool. Well, I won't deploy it, but you'll see how the installation would work through the EasyIO and with a software commit. And then in the end, I will give you a little example of running it on our site and at the University of Groningen. Just a basic installation with easy extend that would go, say, on a shared directory, but you could, of course, change things around to have it land in different places. So, well, the nice thing of being third is that this has all been very thoroughly explained. So you know all of this by now. So Easy is made up of all these layers with the compatibility layer and the certain VMFS delivery. And so we're just going to be working around with these concepts. For developers and for contributing things to Easy, be it at the development repository or in the production stack, people are mostly looking at the part of the software layer. So a user doesn't really need to be concerned themselves too much about, what is happening in the development of the compatibility layer, right, or the file system layer. So as Lara already detailed before, we have this process that the builds that are deployed in the Easy certain VMFS repositories happen through are triggered and happen through GitHub. So you basically open a PR and you say, I want to build for this specific software. And for when we're dealing with the production repository, we have quite a few stringent requirements of how things need to look and what needs to happen for them to be finally ingested. And there's a bit of an approval process there, of course. But as you can imagine, if you're actively developing your code as a researcher, and maybe you want to try it out on a particular system, and you want to run some tests, you want to be able to see how its deployment would happen on Easy. Such an extensive process would probably slow you down a little bit, and that's kind of not the point. We don't want to have development software that is still not ready to go in production, because I mean that wouldn't be good for anyone. But the process in terms of workflow, we try to keep it as close as possible to that for the production repository. So that means that if you're already, say, a multi-X scale researcher who is familiar with that, then they can transition very easily. If you are already an Easy contributor and you then start working within that context, you would also be able to pick things up very easily. So a few more details about this development repository. So in terms of accessing it, it works just like the software EasyIO, so the production repository. We are, in terms of the having the software be deployed and built in the infrastructure, we are now restricting this, of course, to multi-X scale projects and those key applications. Also, as a matter of, I mean, there are the developers we are that are part of the project and with whom we share the resources. But this was kind of the idea to this was that, as was mentioned before, is that the scientists and the researchers are writing this software, writing up these simulations. The experience with HPC systems and with GitHub in CI/CD environments is very heterogeneous. So our people who are extremely experienced and know these things front to back, and there are people who are maybe seeing it up, they've seen it a little bit, but have not really interacted with it. So we wanted to have something that is helpful to them into incorporating those aspects into their development workflow. And there are, of course, many frequent changes, as I mentioned before. So it's not something that we want to have a final stable release. That's the only thing that will get ingested. So we want to let them test their production code, and we've structured this in a particular way. If you've played around with Easy, you're familiar with this /cvmfs/software easy.io that you just saw in the previous presentations. Here we add a project subdirectory that will be related to the specific project that the group of scientists is working on, and then everything else is very similar. So we still have this GitHub repository that will track the builds. We can have CI on the pull requests, and it's exactly the same instance of the bot that is running on the production build that is triggering the builds, ingesting the software. We still maintain the same final approval process of when something gets ingested or not. But in terms of, say, triggering the builds, the process and everything else is pretty much the same. So then, of course, there have to be some key differences. For the production repository, we unless something would prevent us, we would want to have a way of going back to previous installations and keeping older versions. Also, that's very important for reproducibility. And we only install released released software, basically something that's been properly released and tagged. And we build for all the CPU architectures that are that Easy supports, right? Because we want to have that optimization for all of those architectures, and then things will land on the production repository. Now, on the development repository, of course, as I mentioned already, things are a little bit different. We don't necessarily want to have these installations be there forever. Also because the people who are using them don't need them to be there forever. Maybe they just want to test. They want to see if, oh, I've ingested this now. Can I load this in this system? See a little bit how it performs. Maybe I find something else. I will do a next build, and then eventually the stuff that gets ingested into the production repository is a final released version. So on the development repository, we can have more temporary installations because we also are not going for specific releases. We can install from commits that are just part of the development process, and we don't enforce that everything needs to build compile necessarily for all the CPU targets. So to kind of facilitate doing this without having to build an entirely new software stack, because that would kind of be weird within the context of Easy, would really defeat the purpose, we leverage the fact that we already have the software repository available, on which presumably your release software would be built upon. We do the same thing for the development software. So all of the dependencies can be pulled from the production repository, unless they also need to be changed, updated within that development context. So that's also really nice, because you know that you are basically you're keeping the build environment and the dependencies and everything as stable as possible throughout the process, and you're basically reducing the variance of something that could have gone wrong in that process. Then to keep things self-contained within these multi-scale projects, we make things land in a specific project subdirectory, which of course doesn't really exist in the context of the production repository. So to do this, we leverage the functionality of the software commit builds that Alan was just showing by basically instructing developers to make an easy config file that is templated in such a way. We also help them do it when they need it, and then they can choose a commit hash for the particular repository where they are developing their software, and they can include patches and so on and so forth, and we can help them to do even in the context of multi-scale, go a little bit further. For instance, Lara's even developed a nice CI tool that makes a patch automatically, and that's really neat. So then that's kind of how we try to help them in this process. So in the end, it looks just like you would see. This is now I will switch to the browser. This is very similar to what you would have seen before. Oh, I wanted to click the link. So this is the development repository for lamps, for a project that is using lamps. And you can see that for a particular build, in this case, this is a test build, the burden in terms of if everything is already ready for you to go in terms of the templated easy configs, and the bot deployment and the software, the environment already set up, which is something that we do. For a developer, it really is a matter of adding a few lines into an EasyStack file saying I want to build from this commit. And now I'm going to show you kind of how this works in practice and how easy that is to start. So I have a little demo. Let's see if I can get it to work. So here we have an example repository that you can access on Easy. So it's dev-easy.io/example. There will be links in the presentation as well. But basically, this does the same thing. It just installs things into an example project for purposes such as these. So I've created this already, and I will show you what I've added, and we will need to edit a little thing. But so at the start of the process, I am just installing a very basic, so the GitHub Gitline tool, and simply for the purposes that it's very fast to install, it's very easy. And it also has the development is very active, so you can grab a commit from the development repository and be reasonably sure that it will work. I know already that it will work because I've cheated and chosen a commit hash that I've tried before. So you'll see here that you might have to add, say, a dependency if that's already not available. In this particular case, this is already available. The fact that I'm adding making a commit of Go, which would be a dependency, is because this has very recently been added to EasyBuild. So I actually need to get it to pull the EasyConfig file. But in most cases, you won't even need to do that if the easy configs are already available, or if they're already available on Easy. And then you say, well, okay, I want to install this GH from a software commit easy config, and I will need to give it a commit hash, which is what I'll put here. Now, if you look at how this easy config file looks, it looks like any basic easy config file. By convention, we had the software commit hash to the version suffix so that we can kind of keep track and make sure that we can load the correct module. And then we just have to make sure that we include the templates so that we can pull the right thing from where it should come. So if you look at the diff, so this is just a diff between the easy config file that I pulled to edit and the version that I'm now going to build from. You'll see that basically very little is changed. So again, we don't have the checksums, and we're just making sure that things are being picked up from this particular commit. So now I need to edit that file with a right commit hash. This from the web interface because here. That's, yeah. Well, I want to build from this particular commit hash. Okay. So now we've pushed the EasyStack file, the commit hash that we want to build from. So once we have a PR open, the bot, as soon as we do it, the bot will start listening to it. So that means we can trigger the build. So we can say, I want to bot build for, let's just do one architecture, and I will choose Zen 4 because I've just ran a build for it. So the node is hopefully alive and doesn't need to be configured. So if I just give it, if you are familiar with how this process works, or if you've watched my talk in the previous EasyBuild user meeting where I showed something like this is very similar, except now we are building for that particular commit hash. And so in the back end, we're using easy extend to make sure that this is going to fall within the correct CVMFS repository and project subdirectory. It's a little bit slightly more involved than just setting the environment variable in the context of Easy because of the way our workflow works, but it's really nothing complicated. And so now we can see that the job has been started. So I can show you, in the interest of time, I just opened the PR a few minutes ago, where I've done this build already, and in the end it builds and it would be deployed for the development repository. And then once we trigger a deployment, it will be able, we can go to the staging repository and approve it, and then it will be available in the CVMFS/dev-easy.io example project subdirectory. So as far as the process goes, this is pretty much it. So you can target the build nodes that are available already in the project, and then you could do this with every single committer you want, arguably if you wanted to, within the context of multi-x scale. So that's kind of the workflow of how this is for multi-x scale researchers. And yeah, this is going. I chose something deliberately fast, but it's never fast enough for a demo. But maybe maybe we can come back to it later if there's still time. Okay. Yeah, I've added some links here. We also have documentation for this. Obviously, I won't go through them now, but if you want to refer to how this is set up or instructions for how this works, this is also available. And now I want to shift gears a little bit into installations with EasyExtend. And we've had a lot of questions since the start of the user meeting about how actually to build on top of Easy and how EasyExtend works and so on. And so this was covered already a little bit before, but you have multiple options. So you can choose to target, but basically the workflow is very simple. You load up Easy, you set the appropriate environment variable within the context of this EasyExtend module, and as Alan mentioned before, you can target different places. So you can go for site installations, project installations, or user installations. You can also be creative in how you use this, where you can try to depending on how your particular HP system is set up and how you deliver the software, you can choose to put this in a particular, say, if you want to share this for only a private group of researchers that have a license for a specific software, you could target that directory that is only accessible by those researchers, for example. But it really is just setting the path, the corresponding path in these environment variables, and then starting a build. So I will do that now from our HPC. So I'm logged in on Habrock, so the University of Groningen's HPC that Bob presented yesterday. And I will just do a short demonstration of an installation. So what I'm doing now, so all I've done now is initialize Easy, load EasyBuild, and show this is basically just to show you that if you just start EasyBuild, of course, this is the default. These are the defaults that you get, right? So things, if I were to install something now, they would land into this .local EasyBuild file. But now I've created a shared directory that is accessible on our file system for this demo. And I'm going to set this Easy Project Install environment variable to that path. And I'm going to load and okay. So now I've done that, and if I now look at config, if I didn't make a mistake, you can see that the install path is landing into this Easy demo versions and so on. So things have been set up for this to work now correctly. Now I'm going to try an installation of SAM tools. So we thought of a similar package for the installation, also because it's fairly quick to install. And I'm just looking up at what needs to be, what is not available already, and triggering the installation. So we can see that in this particular version of SAM tools, it's not available on Easy, it's not available on a local stack, and but it doesn't need to have any of the dependencies built. So the dependencies are already available. Then after doing that, I just triggered a build for that particular version of SAM tool. So that's running at the moment. If I didn't make a mistake, this should land in, as you can see already, the prefix has been set to the Easy demo. And then in the end, what I want to show you is that if I load this module and I see what has been loaded, what it has been built on top of. So whether we were using our local stack or we're building on top of Easy, which is what we want in this context. Okay. Yeah, it's fairly quick. So now let's load it. Modules. Get now the SAM tools. Yes. So we can see that that's been installed there, and we have as dependencies, we have a bunch of other dependencies for this package. So let's see. You can see that now I've pulled curl from the module of curl that is loaded to, and that was used to build on top of for SAMtools, was pulled from Easy. This was not pulled from a local stack, or this was not something that I had to build separately on top of it. So that basically, this is how easy it is to start just a new installation without having to install any of the dependencies if they're already available from Easy. In this particular case, I chose to, just for the sake of time, to go for a shared directory, but you could do this in the other contexts as well. So that's kind of the aim here. So just to reiterate, with this is a really flexible approach. You can make these installations land on the places where you want them, and leverage the fact that many of the dependencies are already there, so you can use the existing Easy stack. Depending on how your particular site is set up, this can be fairly straightforward to integrate in your workflow to make sure that you're already building on top of Easy, and then you're delivering that software in that way. So the setup is, we try to minimize it as much as possible and make it as simple as possible in that context. So the one last call from my side as well, to keep an eye out for the upcoming webinars, where we'll have more time to go all of these steps in detail and talk about all of the topics that involve all of this. And yeah, we'll also invite you to look at our documentation excuse me, our documentation and our Slack blogs and so on, if you haven't already, where you'll also find more information on all of these topics. And with that, I would thank you for your time and take questions.
Hi, thanks for the nice presentation. So now that you have built SAMtools, for example, what can I do to now cache it so that I don't have to build it again the next time I want to do this on the CI?
Oh, with what I've shown just now on the HPC, on the Groningen HPC, so now I've targeted as an installation path. I just created a shared directory in our local file system, so that installation of SAMtools is already there. So that stays on the file system. So if you want to then use it, you would load Easy, and that would make all of the Easy stack available as well. But the installation of SAMtools would already be in the file system.
But yeah, but now consider that I am doing this in Docker containers, and so I have a new container every time.
Right. Well, if you can mount the Easy repository, have the repository available in the container when you're building something, then you would be able to build on top of it as well. That's actually what we do in the build process for, say, dev EasyIO, for example. If I understood your question correctly.
Maybe you want the utility of dev.easy.io, I think is what you're asking, maybe. Yeah, because you want to publish that, and so you can use it in other environments.
Oh, right.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Online question: how much control does one have over modules created with Easy Extend?
Yeah, it's. I mean, as long as you can create an Easy config file to works, you can. The same as in if I understand the question correctly, it would work. Well.
So maybe just to say, what Easy Extend is doing is setting a set of environment variables. You could load it and change those environment variables if that's what you want to do. It's just they're the ones that we use, right? So you could do something unique to yourself. There's nothing to stop you doing that.
Yeah. So like Pedro showed, there's an Easy project directory or whatever it's called, environment variable. If you set that before you load module extend, it will listen to it. But also afterwards, I mean, all Easy Extend is really doing is preparing the EasyBuild configuration for you, because it can be a bit complex to do that. But from that point, you're free to do what you want. You can still reconfigure EasyBuild to do different things, or change it, or use your own Easy config files, include Easy blocks, include your hooks if you want to. I mean, you can go very far. Yeah. So you can customize it as much as you want.
Notice before we go for one question, I think we would all really love if anyone tries Easy Extend and tries deploying that on your site, and if you run into any issue or you don't, if you let us know, that would be great, because we can also just kind of improve things in that regard. So if anyone is up for that, we'd love.
Okay, so another question for EasyExtend. You showed like 3 environment variables for target installation. What's the actual difference?
Yeah, so it's more or less the level at which you would want to make the software available. So the user install is something that is thought to, the idea is to help a user put it, say, on their home directory or in their software, local private software stack. With project install, I think the initial design, and it still is tailored to, say, for instance, if perhaps you have a shared directory for a lab and they are building a software on that shared directory, and that's shared for them, for this group of people, that would be the case. You can be creative, and if depending on how you deliver the software in your site, you could even make this more broad. And in the site install, that would land in the host injections of the Easy repository. So that's something that you could then, say for instance, symlink to make it available to your entire site. I think that would be the easiest way.
Yeah, so just to mention, one of the differences is how EasyBuild is configured. So in a project installation, the group is allowed to overwrite those installations. So in a user installation, that wouldn't be the case. So it's meant to that there's a group who's maintaining this directory, and they're allowed permissions there to do things.
So it's also a kind of hierarchy. So if one of the variables is set, it's not using one of the others, and then it's setting a couple of EasyBuild options depending on which level you set it.
Exactly. So if you don't set any of them, it will default to a user installation, and then you can progressively escalate it.
Okay, thanks.
At Lumi we use cited or admin.list Elmot functionality to warn users about deprecation of certain modules. So that may be a good idea for EC also, to warn people in advance that something will disappear. And that will probably require, it's pity that Robert is not around at the moment, but it will probably require an extension of Elmot. It would be nice if we could do that at the site level also. If we install things on top of EasyBuild, that we could, on top of that we could warn our users, look, we will stop supporting this module, or there are known problems with this module, which would require that you have kind of a split up admin.list file.
That already exists, I think. Elmot has nag messages, so you have a central file where you can say, whoever is loading this module will get an extra warning.
That file is admin.list. I know that file all too well, but it's one of those files where I think you can have only one on the system. The nice thing would be to have a path, just like with modular c.lua, that you have a path where, so that you can add your own site-specific one, which would be picked up if you set an environment variable to give site-specific messages.
That sounds like a feature request for Elmot.
That's a feature for Elmot, yes.
One online as well? Well, let's do Caspar first, and then the online one as the last one.
Yeah, it's actually more a suggestion. Like, I don't know if it's possible, but I think Robert mentioned like the forbid thing, right? I think that's something you set in the site package.lua, and that is something you can definitely override as a site. So that is, we've set up a hierarchy there, that there's a site package.lua for Easy itself, but if it finds one in your host injections directory, you can actually override or append to whatever the behavior is. So then you could set a forbid in your local site package.lua. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. The comment was that site package.lua is a bit fragile, so if you make a mistake, you'll break everything.
Online question. Could you briefly discuss the symlinking of stuff that gets installed into host injections?
I've actually not tried myself, but I don't know if you...
Yeah, that's a difficult topic to give a very quick answer to, but host injections is something that's really baked into every software that we install in Easy, and it gives us a way to overrule some libraries that come through Easy. So you can essentially put a libmpi.so in there, and that one will win and will be overruling everything else that we have in Easy. There's a lot going on there. It's probably something we need better documentation on as well.
I mean, the big thing about the path host injections is that we know it exists, right? So that's why we can have a site level installation, right? Because we know that the path /cvmfs software.easy.io /host injections that exists on your system. If you point it somewhere, right? So if you point it to a location, you configure basically if it exists. But because we know the path, then we can know the modules that are meant for the site are going to exist in this location. And as a result, we can make them visible by default, right? And that's not true for the other cases because we allow much more flexibility to a project or user level. They could be anywhere. So we can't know that they exist. So they only exist when you load the module, set the environment variable and load the module, because we don't know about them in advance. But in the case of the injections directory, we do know that if you put them there, we can make them visible.
And I guess the question is maybe also related to the GPU drivers, for example, that we symlink. So it essentially, the host injections gives us a fixed directory that we know we can rely on that is exactly the same on every system. And if we just symlink stuff in there, we know where to find things. That's essentially the whole purpose of that location. Okay, I think we're good to wrap up. We're doing well on time, so that means we'll actually get a 25-minute coffee break or very close to it. So enjoy and continue some of the discussions. We'll start back again at 11 exactly with 3 remote presentations.